G'day ladies and gentlemen. Well, today is not going to be a usual let's play, let's go, let's see, let's do, let's watch Evan die. That's not going to be today's episode. Today is going to be slightly different. Why is it slightly different? Purely because I saw the 2-hour keynote from both Chris and Richard at CitizenCon 2952. And I saw it on YouTube. So I wasn't there, if there was such a thing as being there. So it was, for me, this video is a bit of my review. Now, don't worry, I'm not going to pull every single word apart that they said and analyze it to the nth degree. I'm pretty sure there are other people on YouTube that can do that. I'm going to give this just a quick review from my personal experience and from what I do from a from my day job, and also just a bit of feedback into the thought process. So, who am I? Well, my name's Evan, obviously. You can call me Ev. That's or Hey Ev. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. There you go. That's the name of the channel. Look, I've worked in IT for many years. I started at the ground up. Background is I'm an engineer. And I've worked on many projects, and now in my professional career I deliver many projects. So I'm a program manager for a lot of IT projects. So even though it's not a game development project, the whole process and life cycle is very similar. And the one thing that I would actually say, and I'll make the honest assessment now, is that I actually had some preconceptions walking into this particular interview. First of all, I've purposely not seen any of the information that they do as the company, as in CGI, with respect to their timelines and also with respect to the interviews that they do. I personally haven't seen that. I have seen a lot of, let's just say, the YouTube videos were saying Chris is utilizing this as a pyramid scheme and now he's making 500 million and what's he done with the money? Where is it all gone? And all these types of things. So also to a lot of other YouTube people who were complaining about the games and its kind of pace of development. So that's what I've seen, and I walked in with that preconception, and I'll be honest with you, I should have known better, but that's how I walked in. Now, after watching a 2-hour keynote, well, I don't want to say speech, but interview, I have a very different view on it now. And I will say this, I'm not, let's just say, a die-hard fan of Chris or anything like that. It was only until I started playing Star Citizen that I realized that he was the guy that actually did win Commander, which was a cool game back then, giving away a bit of the age there. But ultimately, just listening to the way that they were speaking, and both Richard and Chris, listening to the enthusiasm in their voices, it did not seem to me as these guys being snake oil salesmen or used car salesmen or politicians just saying shit just because they're politicians and they're saying the right stuff at the right time. It didn't sound like that. It did sound like that these guys have actually put in the hard yards, have gone through the trenches, have been beaten around quite a bit, and now are actually at a point where they've got a better handle of the whole situation. And I think that's how I'll say it. Now, it's not to say that they didn't have control before, but based on what they were saying just leads me to suggest that they've got a better understanding of how they actually want to finalize and implement everything, which I think is quite a good thing to see. The other part which also got me very interested was, and again, it's not the way that they used the language, but it was also the way that they were trying to explain what they were doing and why they were doing Squadron 42 in parallel to the PU. And if you think about it, it's not as stupid as what some people out there might think it is. So for those of you that have absolutely no idea about IT, here's a little crash course for you. When you go to work and you're using a program at work, let's just say everybody sends an email. So let's call it Outlook, let's call it Lotus Notes if that's still around, or whatever email client you use. That is pretty much the production environment, meaning that It's been tested, it's been user accepted testing, and it's all there and all done. But what you don't see is the thousands of hours of software development. You don't see the probably equal amount of testing, or let's be honest, maybe even less for the testing, because every organization wants to cut the testing costs down. And then you roll it out into production. And then what do you see? Well, sometimes they change an icon and everybody gets pissed off because they changed the fucking icon. And everybody makes a big song and dance about the fact that they changed the icon. What no one can actually see is how much work they've put in, not in just making the icon, but also everything else that is around that icon. So what I'm trying to say is that if you think of it, if you think of Star Citizen in that sense, basically what are we? We are what we call the user acceptance testers. That's what we're currently doing in the PTU. And as user acceptance testers, we are there, we're testing, we're providing feedback, either via YouTube channels or by the actual feedback from CGI, or if the game crashes, the feedback that goes that way as well. So all the information that we are doing as testers, we're doing it. The model where you kind of want to get a bit narky about is the fact that we're actually paying to test, which is the buying the original ship or buying more of the ships in game. Now, that's also not as stupid as it sounds, because first of all, the game is then being updated and enhanced by the feedback that we as players are giving it, so that's also quite a benefit. But at the same time too, it's also giving the guys the salary in order to keep doing the game. And even though they didn't touch on that much in the Keynote thing, let's be honest, the people that are doing this game, the developers, the graphical design artists, and all the people associated there, the engineers, and also too, let's be honest, the cost of the infrastructure, as in the servers and everything that's running on, this all requires money, folks. I'm sorry to say, just because it's a game doesn't mean you just pay one-off fee and Chris gets all the money. That doesn't work like that. Otherwise, nothing would be there. But this is the whole point. So for me, I really appreciated, or actually more so understood, why they're actually doing Squadron 42 at the same time of them doing the PU. And I also appreciated the fact that they're utilizing Squadron 42 as their own testing cycle or test bed before it goes into the PU. And that's usually you don't find that, but it's also no different, if you think about it, from your development and test environments. Because when you're talking about IT, you usually have three. You have your development, you have your test, and you have your production. So again, these guys are utilizing Squadron 42 as their own development environment. Obviously, once that's all good, they're going to put it into a test environment, and then they're obviously going to sell it as a playable product. And then the advantage of all the work that they've done in 42 will migrate into the PU. So you kind of you can see the logic. And just having the PU there, or PTU there at the moment, I should say, is a way for them to get capital in order to develop and further enrich the game and enhance the game. So again, the model is not a crazy one. It's kind of logical in that sense, and I can definitely understand it from an IT perspective. Also too, the one thing I really enjoyed was the fact that these guys, and I mentioned it before, they're not talking shit. Okay, one of the things I will say is that in my many years in IT, I've seen a lot of people talk so much shit that you kind of get a filter for this stuff. You know, call it a spidey sense or something like that. That you have an understanding going, shit. As soon as they open their mouth, you can pretty much tell, oh fuck, here we go. We're either going to hear people talking about what they really haven't done but trying to buff it up, or people just talking about shit they have no idea about and trying to make themselves look smart. I didn't see it in this interview. Now, either because these two are fantastic actors, or that's just not the case. And based on their body language, I would personally say I don't think it was the case. I think these guys are truly trying to develop a product that they really like. And in developing a product they really like, it takes time. And that's true for anything, really. Like your word processor or your Outlook client, that thing didn't just pop up out of nowhere. That took years to develop, and it costed millions to develop. And it's still going to cost millions to further develop. So my point is, I know that there are a lot of people out there that are criticizing the game, and I criticize it myself from time to time. But still, I can understand the whole process. But then also take in now the fact that we are testers and we're testing the PU, and the feedback comes in. And whenever there are bugs, which is what the IT term for this stuff is, when something doesn't go right, they've got their list and they have to work through them. Now, if you guys have worked in IT or not worked in IT, maybe you've called a help desk at work and then you get shitty because it takes maybe a day, 2 days, 3 weeks, 2 months to fix something. That's because of the level of complexity it is to fix things, and also to what is prioritized in front of that. And that I understand very well. So when they also were mentioning about fixing the bugs and doing all these other things, I can definitely empathize with them, because this shit takes time, and it's not exactly something that you can just go, oh, okay, that's a quick code change. I'll just write down 3 sentences in the code and that will make everything work and everybody be happy. Nah, not at all. Some things may be able to be fixed like that very quickly because of some procedures, but generally speaking, that's not the case in IT. Usually you have to go through the whole incident, problem, change, the whole, we call it ITSM, process to actually understand, okay, this is the actual problem, these are the triggers for it, now let's figure out, can we solve for it? Now that doesn't happen quickly, especially if it's one person playing and one person's got a unique crash. That will take definitely time. So I can definitely understand what they're saying and how they're saying, and I really appreciate that they mentioned that as well. So that for me was quite interesting, and I really did like it. I'm not going to go too much into this now, because I could personally dissect everything, but I'm not going to. This is again my view, my summary. I think based on what they said, my personal experience in delivering IT programs, I'd say they're probably another couple of years away from somewhere where they want to be. And why do I say this? It's just because of what both Richard and Chris were saying, in the sense of they developed these things 10 years ago, or some of these things 10 years ago, and now they're implementing new things with newer technology. If anybody has worked in IT, not used an IT product, but worked in IT, you'll understand if you've got programs in there that are 10 years old, and people have added their own shit into it, changed the things around from what the original piece of software was designed to do, it takes a lot of time to bring it up to date. That's what I'm saying. And the one part which I really appreciated what they were saying, I think Richard was more so talking about this, was that they know holistically where they actually have to start redoing and redesigning certain things. And just by them saying that also made me just sit there and say, you know what, these guys actually do know what they're doing, and they do know what they're talking about. They're not just saying shit, they're really like understanding shit. Our product isn't where it needs to be now, because, well, 10 years, there's legacy stuff in there, and we need to kind of redo a few things to make it a little bit more better and utilize some of the improvements that they've learned over the 10 years. Which is really good. So it means that they're constantly looking, reviewing, and updating. What the end product will be, no one knows at this point, as in you or I as the end users. But from their point of view, I'm pretty sure they have a strategy. I think they know where they want to go to. Is it going to be easy? Of course not. It's a bloody IT project. Nothing's easy in an IT project. Are there going to be people hating these things at certain points in time? Yeah, of course. You've got to take into consideration the game players too. But at the end of the day, I think that they're on the right path of delivering a very interesting product. And I'll say it like that. So yeah, that's my 2 cents on it. Let me know in the comments if you agree, or if you don't, if you have a different view. Again, I'm not a reporter. I'm not anything like that. This is the first time I've actually just done a monologue. But yeah, that's my personal view. And again, if you guys have a completely different view on it, let me know. Because I'm also, let's just say, I'm also interested to hear everybody else's opinions too. Not that I can change them, but I'm interested in hearing them. So yeah, thanks for listening so far, guys. I hope you liked the bullshit animation stuff going on in the background. It was just there for you guys to also see something as I'm crapping on about this. But yeah, thanks for listening, and take care, and I'll talk to you in the next one.